Hi, today we're going to be talking about Chapter 2. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint. So Chapter 2 is the human body and health and disease. So in this chapter, they talk about the anatomic reference systems. And the reference systems include body planes, body directions, body cavities, and structural units. And we'll be going through each one of these throughout the PowerPoint. So what is anatomy? Anatomy is study of the structures of the body. Physiology then is a study of the functions of the structures of the body. And physiology, we can break that term down. Physi is nature or physical, and logy is study of. The anatomic position. What this is describes the body standing in the standard position. This includes standing up straight so that the body is erect and facing forward. Also holding the arms at the sides with the hands turned so that the palms face toward the front. The body planes. The body plane is an imaginary vertical and horizontal line used to divide the body into descriptive sections. You can see that we have three of them. We have the mid-sagittal, transverse, and the frontal plane. We'll go through each one of those with the figures here. So here you can see in the figure here, we have the mid-sagittal plane, divides the body into equal left and right halves. We have the transverse, divides the body into superior, upper, and inferior lower portions. And then we have the frontal, divides the body into anterior, which is the front, and posterior, which is the back portions. You can see where they're all are. Here's your mid-sagittal, the transverse, and the frontal plane. Here again, the mid-sagittal divides it into equal left and right halves. Transverse divides the body into superior, and frontal divides the body into anterior. Some of the body direction terms that we have in the chapter. Ventral refers to the front. Vent, V-E-N-T-R, is the belly side of the body. A-L is pertaining to. So ventral, looking at that term, it means pertaining to the belly side of the body. Dorsal refers to the back of the organ body. Dors is back of the body. A-L is pertaining to. So dorsal means pertaining to the back. Next, we have anterior. So A-N-T-E-R is front or before. I-O-R is pertaining to. So pertaining to the front. Posterior then is pertaining to the back. Poster, P-O-S-T-E-R, toward the back, or back or toward the back. And then I-O-R is pertaining to. We have superior. This is above or toward the head. Inferior then is below or toward the feet. Cephalic, it's just towards the head. Cephalad, C-E-P-H-A-L is head. I-C is pertaining to. Caudal is toward the lower part of the body or the tail. C-A-U-D is tail or lower part of the body, and A-L is pertaining to. So breaking that term down, it means pertaining to the tail or the lower part. Proximal, this is nearest the midline or the beginning of the body structure. Distal then is the farthest from the midline or beginning of the body structure. Medial is toward or near the midline. Lateral is toward or near the side of the body, and that's away from the midline. As you can see here, here's a figure of the mid-sagittal plane, which is midline, runs straight through the body, with the proximal end of the humerus, the distal end of the humerus, with the lateral ligaments of the knee, and then we have the medial ligaments of the knee. Some of the major body cavities, we have the dorsal cavity. This contains the organs of the nervous system, and it's located along the back of the body and head. This is divided into two portions, with the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. With the ventral cavity, this is located along the front of the body. Contains the body organs that sustain hemostasis. And looking at the term hemostasis, you're able to break that term down. Hemo is constant, stasis is controlling. The ventral then is divided into the thoracic cavity, surrounds and protects the lung and heart. The lungs and heart separated from the abdominal cavity by the diaphragm. We have the abdominal cavity, This is where it contains the major organs of digestion. And then we have the pelvic cavity, formed by hip bones, contains organs of the reproductive system. And next, we'll take a look kind of at the figures. Here we have the major body cavity figures here. So looking at it, you can see the thoracic cavities here. We have the diaphragm, which is kind of in between the two, kind of the peach or darker tan color. The abdominal cavity, the pelvic cavity, and then this area here is your abdominal pelvic cavity. You can see where that outlines that there. Oops. And I just went, let me go back. Let me see if I can go back. I just went too far. Okay, hit the wrong key. So you can see where this is the abdominal pelvic cavity, and then this whole area here is the ventral cavity. Looking at the side view here, then we have the cranial cavity, which is the cranial all the way through this and the spinal. And this is your back, so this is the dorsal cavity. The thoracic here, the diaphragm, you can see a little bit better in this picture here, the abdominal, and then the pelvic cavity. The regions of the thorax and abdomen, we have the right and left hypochondriac regions. Looking at the term, hypo is below, chondria is cartilage. This is covered, this region is covered by the lower ribs. We have the epigastric region. Epi is above, gastri is stomach, so it's located above the stomach. We have the right and left lumbar regions. Lumb is lower back. So this is located near inward curve of the spine. We have the umbilical region that just surrounds the umbilicus. We have the right and left iliac regions. Ili, I-L-I is the hip bone, so it's located over the hip bones. We have the hypogastric region. Hypo is below, G-A-S-T-R is stomach, so it's located below the stomach. And here's a figure here, you can see where they're both located. So you have the right hypochondriac region, left hypochondriac. You got the epi region, which is above umbilical region. You have the right and left lumbar, the right and left iliac, and then you have the hypogastric region, which was below. We have the quadrants of the abdomen. We've got 4 of those. We have the right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, and left lower quadrant. And here you can see these, where these are located. The right, left, right lower, and left lower. Here's your umbilicus right here in the middle. Next, in the chapter, they have the peritoneum. This is a multi-layered membrane. Protects and holds the organs in place within the abdominal cavity. So we've got 3 of these here. The peritoneum is the outer layer. Mesentery is the double layer. This attaches parts of the intestine to the interior abdominal wall. And then we have the visceral peritoneum. That's the inner layer. We have the outer, double, and inner layer. Structures of the body. The body is made up of increasingly larger and more complex structural units. From smallest to largest, these are the cells, tissues, organs, and body systems. Working together, these structures form the complete body and enable it to function properly. So cells, just the basic structural and functional units, grouped together to form tissues and organs. So looking at a couple of these terms, cytology, and this is a medical term we're able to break down. Cyte is cell, logy is study of. So study of the cell is what that term means. Cytologist, that means specialist in the study of the analysis of cells. O-L-O-G-I-S-T means specialist. We have the cell membrane, and we have cytoplasm and the nucleus within the structures of the cells. We have stem cells. This differ from other cells because of 2 characteristics. Unspecialized cells able to renew themselves for long periods of time, and also may be transformed into cells with special functions. Stem cells. We have adult stem cells. These are undifferentiated cells located among differentiated cells and tissue organ. There's no specialized function or structure. They're harvested for transplantation from hematopoietic tissue of the donor's bone marrow. We have the embryonic stem cells. This is also undifferentiated cells, ability to form any adult cell. So you can see that they do not require a perfect match between patient and donor when transplanted, obtained from umbilical cord blood, placenta, or surplus embryos produced by vitro fertilization. Genetics. Genetics is studied the transfer of genes from parent to child and the role of these genes in health and disease. Looking at this, gene is producing, tix is pertaining to. Pertaining to producing, that would be genes. Gene is a fundamental physical function unit of hereditary. Genes control hereditary disorders and all physical traits such as hair, skin, and eye color. We have dominant and recessive genes. So dominant gene, for example, be your freckles, are a physical trait that is transmitted by a dominant gene. Recessive genes, for example, sickle cell anemia is in a group of inherited red blood cell disorders that are transmitted by a recessive gene. When this gene is transmitted by both parents, the child will have the sickle cell anemia. We have recessive gene inherited from one parent and normal gene inherited from another parent. Offspring will not inherit the condition. However, the condition may be transmitted to his or her offspring. The human genome is a complete set of genetic information of an organism. It's important in studying use of genetics in the health and science. We have chromosomes, just a genetic structure is located within the nucleus of each cell, made up of DNA molecules containing the body's genes. Somatic cell is any cell in the body except the gametes, which is sperm or egg, also known as a sex cell. Somatic cells contain 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs, 22 identical pairs plus one XX pair, female, or XY pair, male. We have a gamete, sperm or egg. It's also known as a sex cell and is the only type of cell that does not contain 46 chromosomes. Defective chromosomes can lead to birth defects. DNA. Human DNA contains thousands of genes that provide the information essential for hereditary, determining physical appearance, disease risks, and other traits. We have genetic mutation. Potential causes of genetic mutation include exposure to radiation or environmental pollution. So there's a change in the sequence of molecules. You can see we have different ones here. We have somatic cell, gametic cell mutation, and genetic engineering. We have genetic disorders. It's also known as a hereditary disorder. Some examples included, but not limited to, cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, or PKU. Some are obvious at birth, others manifest it and later in life. So these genetic disorders are pathological conditions due to absence of or defective gene. Tissues. Tissue is a group of layer of similar specialized cells that perform certain functions. We got a couple terms here. Histology. We can break that term down. Hist, H-I-S-T, is tissue. Ology is study of, so it's study of tissue. Histologist. Again, this is a term that's a non-physician specializing in the study of microscopic structure of tissues. So a couple medical terms there. There are four main types of tissues. We have epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. So the epithelial tissue is just a protective covering. That's for your internal and external surfaces of the body. We have epithelium and endothelium. Connective tissue is support and connect organs and other body tissues. There are four types. We have the dense connective tissue. This is where it forms the joints. We have adipose tissue, provides padding, insulation, and support. ADIP, A-D-I-P is fat, O-U-S is pertaining to. So looking at this term as one of your medical terms is pertaining to fat. We have loose connective tissue. What this is, this surrounds various organs, supports nerve cells and blood vessels. And then we have the liquid connective tissue. This is blood and lymph, transport nutrients and waste products throughout the body. Your muscular tissue then contains cells specialized to contract and relax. With the nervous tissue, this contains cells specialized to react to stimuli and then also conduct electrical impulses. Pathology of tissue formation. This is where they detect defective tissue formation. Often due to unknown causes, may occur as tissue forms before birth or may appear later in life. Disorders of the tissues which are frequently due to unknown causes. So it can occur before birth or appear later in life. Incomplete tissue formation, we have aplasia. So looking at that term, A is without, plasia is formation. So this is defective development of congenital absence of an organ or tissue. Hypoplasia, hypo is deficient, plasia is formation. So deficient in number of cells leading to incomplete development of an organ or tissue. So aplasia and hypoplasia. We have anaplasia, ana is backward. So change in structure of cells and their orientation to each other. Then we have dysplasia. Dys is bad, abnormal development, growth of cells, tissues, or organs. So a few more terms for those. Hyperplasia, increase the number of cells resulting in enlargement of organ tissue. Hypertrophy, hyper is excessive, trophy is development. So it's increase in bulk of body, part organ due to increase in size, but not in the number of cells. So excessive development, increased plasia. Glands, these are a group of specialized epithelial cells capable of producing secretions. We have two major types. We have exocrine and endocrine. Exo is out of, crine is to secrete. So they're going to secrete chemical substances into ducts. Endo is within, produce hormones, no ducts. Let's take some look at some of the medical terms that we have here for these. Adenitis, looking at this term, ADEN is gland, itis is inflammation, so inflammation of a gland. Adenocarcinoma, adeno is gland, carcin is cancerous, oma is tumor. So this one here is a malignant tumor originating in the glandular tissue. And then we have adenoma. Oma, again, is tumor. Aden is gland. So this is a benign tumor arising in or resembling glandular tissue. Adenosis, os is abnormal condition or disease. So this is any disease or condition of a gland. Adenosclerosis, looking at the term, sclerosis is abnormal hardening, and this would be of a gland. Adenectomy, ectomy is surgical removal. So it'd be surgical removal of a gland. Here's your aden. You'd analyze this term between the N and the E. Body systems and related organs. First one we have here is the body organ. What this is, it performs a specific function. Then we have a body system. It's organization of body organs with specialized functions. Next, we have pathology, which is study of disease. Patho or pathy is disease or suffering, feeling or emotion. We have pathologist, physician specialized in laboratory analysis of disease tissue samples. And then we have etiology. ETI is cause, so this is a study of causes of disease, etiology. Next, we have pathogen. This is a disease-causing microorganism. Transmission, this is just the spread of disease. And we have contamination due to lack of hygiene standards or failure to practice appropriate infection control. Probability that our pathogen is present in contamination. So these are disease transmissions. We've got a few of them here. We have communicable diseases, indirect contact transmission, blood-borne transmission, which would be a spread of disease by contact with infected blood or body fluids. We have droplet transmission. This could be by coughing or sneezing. Airborne transmission. This is a spread of disease by contact with germs floating in the air. If the airborne transmission example would be tuberculosis, measles, or chickenpox. We had foodborne or waterborne transmission. This would be your fecal or oral transmission. This can be spread of disease due to eating or drinking contaminated water or food. We had vector-borne transmission. Diseases they transmit, the mosquitoes actually is the most common. Where the mosquitoes transmit include malaria and West Nile virus. So spread of disease due to the bite of a vector. Outbreaks of diseases. Let's take a couple look at the terms here. They have epidemiologist. Epi is above. Demi is population. Ologist is specialist. So specialist is study of outbreaks of disease within a popular or population group. Endemic, in is within, dem is population, IC is pertaining to. So it's ongoing presence of disease within a population group. We have epidemic, sudden widespread outbreak of disease with specific population group. We have pandemic, pan, breaking that term down as entire, dem is population, IC is pertaining to. So it's an outbreak of disease occurring over a large geographic area, pandemic. Epidemic example would be just a common cold. The pandemic example would be AIDS. Types of diseases. We have functional disorder diseases, iatrogenic illnesses, infectious diseases. Idiopathic disease. Idio is peculiar to the individual. Path is disease, IC is pertaining to. So idiopathic is illness without known cause. They don't know what's causing that illness. Next we have types of disease, just continuing the third slide here. Nosocomial infection, disease acquired in hospital or clinical setting, and organic disorder due to detectable physical changes in the body. MRSA would be an example of, obviously, MRSA is, you do acquire, can get it in the hospital or the clinical setting. Organic disorder here, this would be like chickenpox, which is a characteristic rash. So that would be an organic disorder. Congenital disorders. These do exist at the time of birth. They also have developmental disorder, birth defect resulting in anomaly or malformation. Prenatal influences. This includes the mother's health, behavior, and whether or not she seeks prenatal medical care. Premature birth and birth injuries. Premature birth is, it actually occurs earlier than a 37-week gestation. So if it's earlier, that's considered premature birth. Birth injuries would also fit into this, congenital disorders which were not present before the event surrounding the time of birth. Some of the birth injuries, an example would be cerebral palsy, which is a result of brain damage, can be caused by premature birth or inadequate oxygen to the brain during the birth process. So this is where your cerebral palsy would fit into this birth injury category. Aging and death. Aging leads to higher risk of developing chronic or eventually fatal health problems. We have geriatrics. This is the study of medical problems, care of older people. Post-mortem just means after death. This is where the autopsy is also considered. Post-mortem examination would be the autopsy. They talk about the different healthcare professionals in this chapter. We're the general practitioner, internist, pediatrician. I'm sure you've probably heard of some of these. Here we have a geriatrician, specializing in the care of older people, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, medical receptionist, medical assistant, medical coder, emergency physician, emergency medical technician, registered nurse, licensed vocational nurse, certified nursing assistant, pharmacist, intensive care unit, intensivist, hospitalist, telemetry unit, and medical surgical unit. So you can see they got several different healthcare professionals within this area. Oops, and it looks like that's the end of the PowerPoint. So let me just go back. So, okay, that was it for chapter 2. Thanks for listening. And